All right, at this time I ask for a motion to return to the regular order of business. Second? Second. Roll call.
Councilman Edgewater, Councilman Doran, Councilman Monty,
Yes.
Councilman Mandel, Councilman Jordan, Councilman Bartolomeo.
Yes.
All right, next we have a conference, a representative from Negley Engineering here tonight to discuss the state of Veterans Field. So his name is David Gismeshi. Sorry, David. Could you come up to the front table and use the mic? Just sit down.
Mayor, just for edification and clarification, the reason why Dave is here is we discussed the possibility of increasing the depth, if you will, Dave, of the original contract design for the field, but as a result of flooding and hurricane, we had some discussion on the possibility of is it prudent to raise the field an additional foot in consideration of future storms. And that's why Dave was here.
Good evening, members of the council. As you know, since Hurricane Sandy hit Veterans Field, the federal government has issued advisory basement elevation maps that cover the coastal areas of New Jersey as well as New York. Basically, the difference between what the advisory-based flood elevation maps had, in addition to what the original current FEMA maps had, is a storm surge inclusion into the map. Basically, the last FEMA maps, which for Edgewater were issued in 2005, didn't include any analysis of storm surge, meaning that wave action and the inclusion of a tidal influence on the water body. The new provided mapping has this information. Although it's still advisory, the mapping should take into effect between 1 and 2 years, which is what FEMA's estimate is. But how that affects Veterans Field is basically if you wanted to be more prudent, add a little factor of safety as far as anticipating flood surge, wave action, it would require increasing the elevation of the field as it is currently designed. The current design is based on NJDP mapping, which actually takes precedence, which is why we designed it that way. We actually add a little freeboard to that. There's a little extra factor of safety, but the new advisory maps have gone even further than that, and they're anticipating on top of what the original base flood elevation was, they're anticipating 1.5 to 3 feet of wave action and storm surge within the majority of the field, meaning from the figure 8 towards railroad, they're anticipating 1.5 to 3 feet, and within the figure 8, they're anticipating over 3 feet of additional storm surge, which is why these elevations, might be prudent to increase them.
What is the increase? What would the increase and what additional?
It depends. I mean, currently within the fields, our elevations range from the lowest point on the field around elevation 10, and they slope up to provide natural drainage patterns, natural positive drainage patterns to the inlets we propose to elevation 11.9 maximum. The new advisory base flood elevations would increase the perimeter about a foot to 2 feet, and inherently the center of the fields would raise that same height of 1 to 2 feet. So, in all, the center of the fields would be around elevation 13.9, where their base flood advisory is at 12. And at the lowest points, we'd be at 12, which would be matching the advisory base flood mapping. So, you're looking at approximately 30,000 cubic yards of additional fill for the main field on site.
As far as, the existing retaining walls that have already been installed and the drainage, what kind of effect does that have?
That would all have to be modified. The perimeter retaining walls would have to be increased by, approximately 2 feet. There's an added cost. Some of the drainage would have to be reset. Luckily they haven't filled the entire site as of yet, so that those modifications could be made, but it would require additional work to the drainage and the walls.
Have any other questions?
You have any idea when the next surge is coming?
It's,
That 12 feet is 100 years.
well, you know what, the Hurricane Sandy was even included in this design by the federal government. The advisory base maps came out as a result of Sandy only because they wanted to help people who were rebuilding their homes and businesses in advance on what the new FEMA mapping will be. So they basically haphazardly hurried up and submitted these to the state. So in anticipation of them being furthered and approved within the next 2 years. So at elevation 12, you're looking at 1% chance. That's a 1% chance storm. Hurricane Sandy was a different storm event that included the surge, so it's really hard to say when that would happen again.
And the walkway, what's its height? What's the height of the walkway?
Excuse me?
What's the height of the walkway outside?
The walkway, sorry. Excuse me.
New England.
No, you know what? The walkway along the river walk, I have a map. It ranges from 11 to 13. It's actually some spots it's as low as 9. But the storm surge along the walkway is much greater. They're anticipating elevations up to 15. And because they've categorized this new zone as Zone V, which they anticipate a wave action of greater than 3 feet. So that on top of what the 100-year storm would be, on top of that, there's an additional 3 feet. If you're looking at high tide, that adds another elevation factor into it. So we would have to raise that walkway 5 to 6 feet in most cases, which in my opinion is not really practical. You're looking at you'll be about 5 to 6 feet higher than River Road if you're looking at River Road. So.
So will the field sit higher than the walkway?
There'll be
if we were to raise this
it
additional...
would be a little higher some places.
Some places.
Yeah, because the way it works is we crown at the middle of the field, so the middle of the field is the highest point, that way it drains away from the center. So at some points it would be a little bit higher.
And is this recommended by FEMA, this to raise the extra, is this a recommendation from...
Most of the FEMA mapping is really geared to residential homes, community public facilities, that sort of thing. They recommend at any point, if you have the opportunity, to raise it to meet these elevations. Yeah, it's a suggestion. We don't know the effects, particularly for a recreational facility like this, because it's open space, so that there's no specific requirements for that.
All right, so as far as the increased fill and the capping of the walls or extension of the drainage, do you have an idea of what we're looking at as far as a number?
Yeah, we put together something pretty quick, and we approximated between $300,000 and $400,000 for the extra fill and improvements to the wall and drainage.
Okay. Where are we at as far as, we're in a position right now where we're held up. We need that decision as soon as possible, right?
That's right. Because we would have to put together some initial mapping to assist the contractor that way he knows what to set his final grades at. So we would need a hear from your office. We would need to put together something that way the contractor can follow accordingly.
Any other questions?
Mayor, the difference between the FEMA maps and the advisory-based flood elevation maps, they're two separate standards?
It's an update.
It's an update.
Once these maps are finalized,
Then they will become
it would be the
like
new
FEMA.
exactly.
Yeah, so.
They would
if-
take the place actually of the existing FEMA map.
Okay, so if there is an advisory-based flood elevation recommending that this field be elevated, there's a good likelihood that it will become part of the FEMA regulations anyway.
Right.
And even if it wasn't to be adopted, it wouldn't make much sense for the borough to spend the amount of money they're spending to improve the field without protecting itself against another storm event that they easily could have, dealt with if we had, decided to spend the money and increase the elevation. It seems like the prudent thing to do, correct? And it's your recommendation that we do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you.
Do we feel like we should have some further discussion on this? Or do we feel that this is something we should decide on tonight?
Specs. You can take it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can take a consensus this evening to give the engineer some direction, to give you a formal proposal,
That might be important.
and then that will give you another opportunity to discuss it further at a work session, and then formally take action at the next regular meeting.
Okay, so that's what I'd look to do then. We have a work session discussion, and we'll do our, homework on it and decide at the next active meeting. So can we take a
Consensus.
Consensus. And this would be as to move forward with the recommendations of the engineer to increase the height of the field,
Well, to formalize a proposal.
to obtain specs. Formalized proposal, okay. Councilman Doran.
Yes.
Councilman Monty.
Yes.
Councilman Jordan.
Yes.
Councilman Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Motion passes. Consensus is to move forward.
So Dave, you'll put together, a cost estimate with all the breakdown? Sure. Okay, we'll have that for the next work session. Great, thank you very much.
Along with some mapping, that way you have some guidance on what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
This time I'd like to open the meeting to the public. Tommy?
Mayor, Avenue, Edgewater. Mayor, I'd like to bring attention to two letters that have been discussed, brought to the body's attention and discussed roughly 2 years ago. I never paid much attention, but I'd like to reiterate and bring it to mind. This pertains to the Hudson River walkway, and basically, when the talk of the docks, the county John going to the surface. Number one is the letter dated and signed by 3 former officials, Edgewater officials, that also, as it is, holds prominent positions within the independent coalition.
Speak into the microphone.
Those 3 individuals sent a letter dated June 3rd, 2010, directed to the Department of Environmental Protection to Mr. Martin. I take issue with the 3rd paragraph, which states basically they're representing that the riparian rights in the Edgewater County were always zoned for cluster housing, or cluster housing. And it still remains.
Tom, just make sure you speak into the mic, sir.
That the riparian rights in the Edgewater County, Block 1, Lot 2 and 3, were zoned for cluster housing. And that it still remains zoned today. This was dated, remember, June 3rd, 2010. That's never been the case. Never been the case. Mr. Bozier, you were planning board attorney for 27 years. When was the riparian rights on Block 1, Lot 2 and 3 ever zoned for cost of housing. Just to strengthen my point, when the statement is made, and it still remains today, zoned for that purpose, Mayor, you're a councilman sitting next to two independent coalition elected officials, including Mr. Gallagher. You remember the proposal that was to rezone the riparian rights from P, which is presently zoned, to recreation. Why would there be such a need if it was zoned for, you know what I'm saying? That's just outright bold lie. The other letter is, basically I didn't pay no attention. It's addressed from the Hudson River Waterfront Conservation of New Jersey, Inc. It's written by Helen Manitou. Didn't pay no attention until roughly a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, right? I ran into you at a meeting being held by the Open Space of Bergen County with the Economic Plan Commission, of which this lady evidently was a member of the board. And she made two catching statements. Number one, she represented herself as a former member of the Hudson River Waterfront Commission back in 1980 that wanted to have this community basically cease and desist. They would have proposed 11-member, 11-town commission controlled by the 7 waterfront communities of Hudson County and 4 of Bergen, Fairview, Cliffside, Fort Lee, and Edgewater. They would, because of their rules and regulations imposed, would encompass almost the entire community. All zoning decision-making process would have been left in their hands, and all future revenue would have been dispersed based among those people. So that was my first acquaintance. I didn't know the lady directly, I still don't know, but I know the name. The second is her sitting on the board. When she made the statement that Edgewater's renaissance and resurgence is directly related to the Hudson River waterfront walkway. Really? Are you telling me that the walkway created your renaissance? It brought you from $117 million total abstract gradables from 80 to over $3 billion? It was because of the walkway? Or was the walkway imposed because of new development? With all of its setbacks. The biggest one was brought to light 30 years ago. That how you're going to make complete linkage when you got ongoing manufacturing concerns. It was, the other thing is, in going through this Hudson River, I don't know if it's true or not, but if you go to the website, we have our own Mary Hogan listed on as a trustee, basically on the executive board. Can you, and if that's the case, can you imagine, and the residents, 300 families of Admiral's Wharf, who is not even affected by the impositions of existing walkway conditions, have one of our own former elected officials, and for the last decade, an aspirant of that same office in the hen house with Telemonte that wants to take away their privacy, break service of their cars, take 33 parking stalls, and can't take away their pavilion in the back? It doesn't make sense. If that's the case, you've got to ask yourself the question, who is he representing? The state or the people of Edgewater? Thank you.
Anyone else wish to hear? Mary?
Mary Hogan, 606 on Fifth Avenue, and I speak for myself. I have a request. The light on Route 5, there was a traffic light, not traffic, sorry, there was a street light on the pole that fell down directly next to the bus stop. When the pole was re-put up, there is no light on it.
Right, they put the light across the street.
We need that light right there, because among other things, that's where Undercliff Avenue comes up, and if people have any idea of possibly crossing Route 5, people that know don't cross there, they walk in either direction so they can see the traffic. But if they were to cross there, that's exactly where you needed the light, and you also needed the bus stop. So I don't know who we have to petition to get the traffic light, the street light put back on that pole. But I think it's very important for the safety of the residents to have one put there.
Mary, if I can ask you, would a directional light be helpful rather than a traditional street light?
I'm
Well, I'm
not
just
an
saying,
engineer, I don't know.
if we cover more area, it would make things more visible.
You mean the one on the other side?
Well, even the pole you're referring to, if we were to put a directional facing the park area and the bus stop, it would brighten things up.
Yeah, the
from
bus stop, I think
wider.
needs a light because, people do use it in the evenings and stuff. Well, it was in the winter when it's darker earlier.
Yeah, because the street light will keep it more narrow. If we put a directional light, it will.
But anything is better than nothing, because we have nothing there. And of course, in making the turn off Route 5 down there, you really can't. It's very dark in terms of people just crossing Undercliff. Because the light is not there anymore. Whereas if you had a street light there, you could see if someone's crossing Undercliff at that point, if you're making the turn, either coming into Undercliff or going up to the Route 5. The second thing I wanted to just mention in terms of the FEMA mapping, they have, not that I'm suggesting we wait this long, but in terms of the homes down at the shore, they're recommending to people not to wait until August to start their rebuilding, because they have a feeling someone's telling them that the maps are going to change, requirements are going to change. Like right now, what was put in was like, oh my God, and now people are looking at it, and they may be doing other things and not requiring houses to be raised that high, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know how it's going to affect here. In terms of the walkway at the ball field, Hudson River walkway, it is already below what the ball field is. If you leave it there, I presume that wall that exists holding the ball field back and the walkway is below it will make it even higher, the distance. I don't think that's a good idea. I was against putting it below anyway, but they do have it in places where it's below. But I really think you have to raise it to at least stay what it is already, because that's what gets hit first. And although it's not part of the park, it's certainly going to be an obligation of the boroughs to repair it. So to leave it too low, and that gets washed out each time is not helpful either. So I think when you raise, and I think you should raise, but if you raise, I think you should also raise that to keep it the same, whatever it is now. Keep it that high. I also had a question on two of the resolutions you have. First one is on the increase in the reserve for uncollected taxes. And there's a paragraph in there that talks about the taxes are less, the increase is less. I mean, what you have, collection rate was less because of the number of increase in the number of state and county tax appeals. Well, the only fallacy behind that is that if you're going to do a tax appeal, your taxes have to be up to date. So you have to pay your taxes if you're doing a tax appeal. So that's not the cause of your taxes not being paid. I'm not sure what it is, but it's not the tax appeals, because if you're doing a tax appeal, they require you to have your taxes paid up to date. You can't appeal if you're delinquent in your taxes. The other one has to do with the terms. You talk about the amount of money, and it says between 232,000 plus to 367,000 plus. Is that in addition to what is already in the contracted terms? It's addition. If you put, and this is just a question in listening to what your engineer was saying, if you're increasing the amount of soil you put on, does that change the amount of testing you have to do?
Yes.
Okay, so the testing would get less or more?
Soil is, every load of soil needs to be tested.
Oh, I understand the
Right.
soil.
Every, if you use stone, stone does not need to be tested, it's considered.
But we don't test, right? I thought that's coming from a site on Route 3, and they're testing it before they send it to us.
I believe every truck that went onto the ball field was tested by terms.
Even the ones that came from that site, because we had all that testing that was done by another firm on that, the soil that we got. I had paperwork like this when I requested it from Walker. Pages and pages and pages of testing that was done on that dirt already before they allowed them to ship it. Because it was by Route 3, and I guess there were probably concerns about contamination there. So, I don't know why you would have to pay more or test again if that soil is coming from where it's been tested. I would presume Terms can just review the testing by the other company. I don't know why we would have had to pay for that. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wish to be heard? Dennis?
Dennis Gallagher, First, with regard to what we've just been discussing, I'm sure you've taken it into account, but I didn't hear you mention of the actual seawall itself. There is a seawall there right now, as I understand it. Is that correct?
That was constructed, yes.
That was constructed. And has it been evaluated as the, existing kinds of things we've had?
There was probably close to 75% of it was completed prior to the storm, and from what I hear, it fared very well. There was no damage to that particular section of the project.
The SB9, I brought up about the alcohol building. It's called also the Breland building, and the fact that Mr. Davies had agreed to a speculation in exchange for one thing. He was supposed to provide a recreational facility, and that was to be what is the Breland building in its entirety. Have you looked at it?
I'll have Bill touch on that afterwards. I don't want
Okay, well, there's several things along these lines. I find it very frustrating to talk to you, and then later on have you come back with some version of what you think I was talking about, and it's not relevant, or it's off this, not having a dialogue is next to poisonous here. It's making things less than almost worthless. It's frustrating, and also this is not. We don't have that. We have to go through all these technicalities, all this bull, just to get to talk to you, and then get some back from you that maybe is completely off the subject we're trying to get to. You have a lawyer here. I am concerned that if this particular building, which there is activity there, something's happening, and in fact, something that is not necessarily in our best interest. It was in the interest of the developer when he said he needed something. We let him have it. We let him have what he wanted in exchange for him doing something. As far as I know, he has done almost nothing so far to even provide what he said he had done nothing. So I'd like to know what's going on. What are we doing to make sure it happens quicker? In the meantime, this has been going on for years, literally years. Now, I don't know if you've looked into it, but I think when I initially wrote this, I knew nothing about it. And I can understand that maybe, not maybe, but that's true. It wasn't on your watch. But in fact, there's enough here that where this shouldn't happen. It shouldn't have been let go this long. It's been to the detriment of the wider community. I appreciate it. You would get a lawyer's opinion on this. Not just, I'm not talking about opinion. I'm talking about looking into this and resolving it in favor of the community. That he honor the thing that he said he would do a long time ago and hasn't. And along those lines, a long time ago, building just the piece of property just north of the Les Jardins was stripped of trees. It was subsequently terraced. And this was after Ms. Diomedes had testified in court. I was there. He testified in court that he could not use that property because the town itself had just prior changed the zoning there and said that it was just a steep slope, and he's on the stand telling the judge that he can't make any use of this property because of what the town did. And within several months, it was down there, driven around. Now, we have the power to say, fix it. You don't have to wait for the state to come in and tell you this was wrong. The state has said it's been wrong, and now for 13 years, nothing's happened. We have what was almost like a forest, or actually it was, that was ripped out. It was terraced. It was done in spite of the fact that the zoning had just been barely put on paper when we started ignoring it. Anyway, I presume you knew nothing about it, but I appreciate if you would look into it and then take proper action.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I'll close the open portion of the meeting. Dennis, I just want to respond to one thing you said, and I'm not trying to, skip around. You said I said I didn't know what was going on with it. You were talking about the for sale sign that's been on that building as long as I can remember.
That's what
I wasn't sure. It's my time, Dennis. You have your 5 minutes. I wasn't sure if the building was for sale, sold, or it's even on the market. I've seen that sign for a long time. Another thing is with the deed restriction. I believe it was mentioned at the last work session that the deed restriction was removed from that property. I believe the co-op portion of the property it was removed on, and the existing remaining parcel still has the deed restriction that you're discussing. So Phil, I'd ask that you give a little more detail and answer Dennis's questions in full if it's possible.
Well,
maybe the status of the property, if it's for sale, if it's been sold. It's not.
Mayor, this issue has come up several times in the past, and a question came up about whether or not the deed restriction that was placed on that property was removed. A couple of years ago, I looked into it, and the deed restriction had not been removed, but there was a clarification that was required because when the property was subdivided, it took on a designation of Lot A and B. And the question is whether or not it was clear enough to anybody who would look at it that after the subdivision, that deed restriction was still in place on the remainder of the property, not the COA, not the affordable housing units, but the remainder of the property. So the borough took steps to clarify and refile the deed restrictions on the remaining portion of the property, and it does specifically say what it can be developed for. Recreational, spa. They actually mentioned canyon ranch styles development because I guess that's a pretty well-known type of development. So we're confident that the deed restrictions that were placed on this property a number of years ago remain in full force and effect. As to who's going to develop that property and whether it's for sale, I mean, anybody can sell their property, but whoever buys it is now going to be required to meet those limitations that have been put in place. It happens all the time. So I don't have any specific information as to whether the property has been sold. Am I correct, Greg, that approvals have been granted for a
From what I understand, approvals have been granted, yes. Waterside Construction has placed the borough on notice that they will demolish the shell of the existing Alcoa building. As far as building permits after the demolition permit, we don't know. And the other clarification I want to make too, I know Dennis does ask this and has been asking about it, but, and Phil, you can confirm it with me. The deed restriction does reference recreational and spa-like amenities, but nowhere does it say municipal recreation and spa-like amenities. So this is, in my reading of the document, it doesn't mean that a municipal recreational facility will be built. This is going to be a privately held recreational facility and acting as a business. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. But the deed restriction does exist.
Could I say something?
Finish your time's up.
We are,
Move forward with this meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis.
Mayor, just for the record, my recording was not recording until a few minutes ago. The wire was disconnected from the bottom some point during the meeting, before the meeting. So I don't know if it was my foot or your foot. Sorry. So about 38 minutes are missing from the meeting.
Maybe we can request a copy if we need to do.
Well, we'll see what the new fees are then.
Yeah.
That was good. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, moving forward, I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of February 4th, 2013, the work and 2 closed sessions, and then we have February 19th, 2013, the regular session. I ask for a motion. Second.
Jordan?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan?
Roll call.
Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
Councilman Monti?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
Councilman Bartolomeo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Communications, petitions. All right, we have 2 ordinances to introduce. Ordinance number 1490, 2013, entitled an ordinance deleting and replacing chapter 318 of the Code of the Borough of Edgewater in order to revise the fees chargeable for public documents. Do we have any discussion? This one's pretty much self-explanatory.
If I can elaborate a little bit. Basically, what happened was with the next ordinance, 1499, which has to do with fees payable to tax collector, police chief, the wording stated that fees payable directly to the police chief, not the Borough of Edgewater. So we're cleaning that up. And then we're separating, we're not amending or increasing any of our, on the next ordinance, I'm sorry, on 1490, we're not increasing any fees. We just separated it from chapter 318 to make it cleaner. So it was brought to our attention by the police chief because he was concerned that according to the ordinance, this is payable to the police chief. So you could add tax collector, et cetera, so you could see the concern there. But nothing else is changing, it's really the same, we're just removing it from the other one.
Do I have an introduction?
Councilman Jordan?
Second?
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Whereas an ordinance deleting and replacing chapter 318 as the Code of the Borough of Edgewater in order to revise the fees chargeable for public documents was introduced on March 18, 2013, passes its first reading, will be considered for public hearing on April 15, tax day, at 7:00 p.m. here. Councilman Abbott is absent. Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
Councilman Monti?
Yes.
Councilman Bidell is absent. Councilman Jordan?
yes.
Councilman Bartolomeo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Councilman Dorn, do you have a committee report?
I would just like to say, I don't know if you had an opportunity to see the firehouse on the north end of town, but Tommy Quinton and the guys from the DPW are doing an incredible job
I apologize if you,
Okay.
I jumped over. We have ordinance number 1491, 2013. It's an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 81 of the Code of the Borough of Edgewater in order to set fees for certain permits, ID cards, and letters of good standing. This is basically what Barbara was talking about. Instead of the fees are payable to the police chief, it will now reflect that they're payable to the Borough of Edgewater. Do you have an introduction?
I'll introduce it.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Whereas an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 81 of the Code of the Borough of Edgewater in order to set fees for certain permits, ID cards, and letters of good standing was introduced March 18th and passes its first reading and will be considered for final passage on tax day, April 15, 2013 at 7 o'clock p.m. here in the municipal building, 55 Brook Road. Councilman Doran?
Yes.
Councilman Monty?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
Councilman Bartolome?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, I'm sorry, Kevin. Can you
I was just saying they're doing a great job of the North Firehouse, the Palisades Ave. Was up there the other day. Inside, new sheetrock, new electricity, wiring, plumbing, and Tom Clinton and the employees, the DPW guys are going up there during the day. They're doing, really surprised at how well it's coming up great. And Tom Clinton, again, is doing a great job.
Councilman Monty? Councilman Jordan?
No, they didn't.
Good. Councilman Bartolome? Okay. Moving forward, we have resolutions. We have 2013-070 through 2013-097. Do we have any questions? I know we spoke about these, we have a couple of 2013-89, 2013-90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, and 97. They're all pretty much the same. They're all tied in together. It's the Undercliff improvement, the Oldwood Road, Hilliard, Edgewater Place, Valley, and the following are the construction management services that we normally get from Negative Engineering. So if we have any questions, does anybody have any questions in regards to the resolutions? Seeing none, can I ask for a consent agenda on resolution 2013-070 through 2013-097? Do we have a motion?
Second by Councilman Jordan.
Roll call.
Councilman Doran?
Yes.
Councilman Monty?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
Councilman Bartolome?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under old business, I spoke at the last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, on the, I'd asked Anthony Bartolome to serve a 3-year term on the Shade Tree. I have Robert Christensen, who represents our zoning board, to serve a 2-year, and Kevin O'Connor, the chairman of the planning board, to serve a 2-year. Pat Caruso staying on with a 1-year appointment. Donnie Ray is going to go on for 1 year. And we have Sam Venosha Jr. going on for alternate number 1. I do have 1 alternate position left, so I'll work to fill that by the next meeting. On the new business, I have 2 proclamations. Proclamation by the mayor to designate the week of May 19th through the 25th, Emergency Medical Services Week. And the second would be a proclamation proclaiming April 26th, Arbor Day. Greg, do you have a report?
Progress, Mayor.
Barbara, do you have
No,
any?
nothing.
All right, so we're going to go into closed session to discuss personnel. We'll be dealing with the DPW contract negotiation. So do I have a motion to go into closed?
So moved.
Second? Roll call.
Councilman Doran?
Yes.
Councilman Monty?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
And Councilman Bartolome?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-2.